And there's still going to be disagreements, and some will disagree with us. But we've got to constantly make our case, I think, and not play an insider's game, play an outsider's game. Last point I would make about this, you know what I think would actually make a difference, Michael? I think if everybody here, excuse all the members of the press who are here, if everybody here turned off your CNN, your Fox, just turn off the TV, MSNBC, blogs, and just go talk to folks out there instead of being in this echo chamber where the topic is constantly politics. The topic is politics. It is much more difficult to get a conversation focused on how are we going to help people than a conversation about how is this going to help or hurt somebody politically. And that's part of what the American people are just sick of. Because they don't care, frankly, about majorities and minorities and process and this and that. They just want to know, are you delivering for me? And we've got to, I think, get out of the echo chamber. That was a mistake that I think I made last year, was just not getting out of here enough. And it's helpful when you do. All right.
Mr. President, you've told me, suggested, don't pay attention to the blogs, don't listen to talk radio, don't watch cable TV, and I followed that advice pretty good. Next question will be from the chair of our Agriculture Committee, the senator from Arkansas, Blanche Lincoln.
Me neither, Mr. President. I stay away from the TVs and everything else. But thank you so much for being here with us today. And I want to thank you also. I had a opportunity with several of my colleagues from the House and Senate to have a bipartisan meeting yesterday with the First Lady on childhood obesity. It was a great meeting, and we look forward to working with her and you and your administration to really tackle that problem on behalf of our children and the future of our country. Mr. President, I come from a seventh-generation Arkansas family. My dad was a good Democrat, and he was a great Arkansan, and he was very typical of Arkansans in that he was very independent-minded, as am I, and as are most of my constituents. And he used to tell me early on when I ran for Congress, he said, it's really results that count. And as I look at what's going on in my state and among my constituents, I visited with a constituent yesterday, good Democrat, small business owner, who was extremely frustrated because there was a lack of certainty and predictability from his government for him to be able to run his businesses. He and his father have worked hard. They've built three or four different small businesses, and he fears that there's no one in your administration that understands what it means to go to work on Monday and have to make a payroll on Friday. He wants results. He wants predictability. And I think that you're exactly right. People out there watching us, they see us nothing more than Democrats and Republicans up here fighting only to win a few political points, not to get the problem solved. And so I want to echo, I guess, some of what my colleague Michael Bennet from Colorado mentioned, but also to ask to you in terms of where we are going. What can we tell the people in terms of predictability and certainty in getting this economy back on track? How are we going to do that? And are we willing, as Democrats, not only to reach out to Republicans, but to push back in our own party for people who want extremes? And look for the common ground that's going to get us the success that we need, not only for our constituents, but for our country in this global community and this global economy. Are we willing as Democrats to also push back on our own party and look for that common ground that we need to work with Republicans and to get the answers? And it's really the results that are going to count to our constituents. And we appreciate the hard work that you put into it.
Well, look, there's no doubt that this past year has been an uncertain time for the American people, for businesses and for people employed by businesses. Some of that certainty just had to do with the objective reality of this economy entering into a free fall. And so let's remind ourselves that if you've got an economy suddenly contracting by 6%, or a loss of trillions of dollars of wealth basically in the blink of an eye, or home values descending by 20%, that's going to create a whole lot of uncertainty out there in the business environment and among families. And part of what we've done over the course of this year is to put a floor under people's feet. That's what the Recovery Act did. That's what the interventions in the financial markets did. It broke the back of the recession, stabilized the markets. Nobody's talking about a market meltdown at this point. And people haven't recovered all that they had lost in their 401ks, but they're feeling a little better when they open that envelope now than they did 6 months ago. State budgets were in free fall. That was stabilized. States are still going through incredible pain, but they did not have to lay off teachers and firefighters and cops at the levels that they would have had to otherwise lay them off. That provided some stability and some certainty. So the steps you've taken as a Congress, the steps we've taken as administration, have helped to stabilize things. Now, moving forward, Blanche, what you're going to hear from some folks is that the way to achieve even greater economic growth, and keep in mind the economy is now growing at a 6% clip, so the question is, when do businesses actually start hiring? Because they're now making a profit. What you're going to start hearing is the only way to provide stability is to go back and do what we'd been doing before the crisis. So I noticed yesterday when we were there was some hearing about our proposal to provide additional financing to small businesses and tax credits to small businesses. Some of our friends on the other side of the aisle said, this won't help at all. What you have to do is to make sure that we continue the tax breaks for wealthiest Americans. That's really what's going to make a difference. Well, if the agenda, if the price of certainty is essentially for us to adopt the exact same proposals that were in place for 8 years leading up to the biggest economic crisis since the Great Depression, we don't tinker with health care, let the insurance companies do what they want, we don't put in place any insurance reforms, we don't mess with the banks, let them keep on doing what they're doing now because we don't want to stir up Wall Street, the result is going to be the same. I don't know why we would expect a different outcome pursuing the exact same policies that got us into this fix in the first place. Michael Bennet articulated it very well. Part of the reason people are feeling anxious right now, it's not just because of this current crisis. They've been going through this for 10 years. They've been working, not seeing a raise. Their costs have been going up. Their spouses going to the workforce. They work as hard as they can. They're barely keeping their heads above water. They're trying to figure out how to retire. They're seeing more and more of their costs on health care dumped in their lap. College tuition skyrockets. They are more and more vulnerable, and they have been for the last decade, treading water. And if our response ends up being, because we don't want to, we don't want to stir things up here, we're just going to do the same thing that was being done before, then I don't know what differentiates us from the other guys. And I don't know why people would say, boy, we really want to make sure that those Democrats are in Washington fighting for us. So the point I'm making, and Blanche is exactly right, we've got to be non-ideological about our approach to these things. We've got to make sure that that our party understands that, like it or not, we have to have a financial system that is healthy and functioning, so we can't be demonizing every bank out there. We've got to be the party of business small business and large business because they produce jobs. We've got to be in favor of competition and exports and trade. You know, we don't want to be looking backwards. We can't just go back to